Everyone, on a 34th rental roundtable episode, we had on Akili Tori from GTA Equipment Rental. He's an interesting background where he's been in the industry since he was 15 years old, and he's been decades of rental experience starting and running a rental business, but he's also an AI and technology specialist. Coming out of the book in January, The Digital Advantage, Harnessing People, Culture, and Technology for Growth. He's also speaking at the Future of Rental show at the ARA show in January. So love the topic today. Talk about technology, how to adopt technology, particularly AI and where that goes in rental companies and rental software. If you like technology, if you like rental companies, this is a good episode for you. Hope you enjoy. All right, we're live from the Rental Roundtable. Akili, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Excited to talk. We have an author on today, or soon to be author. I don't know when you become an author, when the book goes out or not, but it's coming out in January. Title is The Digital Advantage, Harnessing People, Culture, and Technology for Growth. Keely's also speaking at the Future of Rental show at the ARA show in January. Also has decades of experience running an equipment rental business based in Toronto. So excited for this episode because a couple things I love. I love technology, love AI, and I love rental companies. And I think you've sort of blend all those together. So excited to talk through some of what's coming out in your book and also some other topics here today. So excited to dive right in. So Akil, I'd love if you want to just start off, just kind of share your story, your background, growing up in the industry and how you got to where you are today.
Well, sure thing. Once again, Kyle, thanks for having me. I'm excited. Um, I I started out a few years back. I think I fell into the rental industry when I was 15 years old, and I grew up in the industry. Learned a tremendous amount working with one of the rental houses in Canada, and met a lot of great people. Huge emphasis on being customer centric, improving processes, and just having a lot of fun with the day to day. I grew up like everyone else, and off to university I went, and didn't know what I wanted to do. Graduated at the university up here in London, Ontario, the University of Western Ontario, and came back to the rental industry. Rentals was something that I was just fond of. Um, I did have a little stint, I think back in 2000 or 2001. I actually moved into industry. I moved into the robotics field. I did back then have a background or a glance or um, I did have a gadget view in me where I enjoyed gadgets. So anyways, I
Yeah.
went into the robotics field. Shortly after that, I fell into supply chain. Worked in some of the largest retailers in Canada and globally. Learned a tremendous amount in process and people. Uh, and then soon after that, about a few years back, when the last recession hit, my brother called me up and asked me, "Hey, listen, are we going to do this? Are you in? Are you out?" And I said, "I'm all in."
Mm.
I just didn't realize being all in meant I was putting it on my credit card, which had some other conversations between my wife and other family members on some of the decisions we made. But we did that and started off with two pieces, and I'll say we haven't looked back. We continue to have fun and evolve over time.
So you started this on a credit card, your rental business, right? And that was, you said right after 2008. Is that, am I tracking right? The 15
Yeah,
years.
my credit card, yes.
Yeah. I mean, timely, I guess Black Friday's this week. So good time to run up the credit card. But well, I'm curious, like, what was it like starting with two pieces of equipment? We talked to a lot of people who are getting started and they're year one, year five, year 10, doesn't matter. But those first few years are hard. What was it like getting started those first 2 or 3 years? What do you attribute your success to?
Um, I would say both me and my brother just enjoy the industry. There's something about this industry that keeps bringing you back. No one day or no 2 days are the same. You build tremendous relationships with other people that are building their own businesses. You see other families grow in terms of what they're doing, and you basically work every day solving problems. And if you're the type of person that enjoys that type of fast-paced excitement, it's
Mm,
for you.
mm,
Now, that's not to say every day was easy, and that's not to say that we didn't have a lot to learn, because going into something with just some passion, that definitely and grit brings you a certain way. We've
Hmm.
had to put in some hard disciplines and some processes in place so that, we continue to kind of grow and prosper in the different marketplaces and different customers that we serve.
At what point did it get easier? Like, imagine that first 6 months and you run up the credit card bill and first year and the year and a half. At some point, did it flip where you're like, all right, I could sleep at night and it feels a little bit easier. It's always a grind, I imagine. But at what point in the journey did it like feel like you could breathe a little bit more?
It's an interesting question because it's something we talk about when we kind of review our progress every year.
Yeah.
You know, I, I'm fortunate, Kyle, in my life, I've been able to build a life where I can choose that, I can choose to do this, and it's really not work for me or my brother. We can essentially step back if we wanted to. Both sleep well at night. Um, we both sleep well at night, but I can tell you that, given any type of situation or any customer or anywhere where we can do better, we don't lose sleep. We've flipped it from a firefighting type of company or kind of situation that most rental operators face, and we kind of strategically build and think through what the future looks like. And those are through monthly meeting, monthly forecasts, monthly things that we talk about, our daily walks on the yard, our conversations quarterly, and just sitting back and quite frankly, some of the things that we do, we just have to just fall just give up on or park on the shelf because they're not something that we can either do at the time, or maybe it was just a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, I imagine you probably transitioned from the knife fighting first year to you're still dealing with problems, but they're more structured problems. And if you don't solve it in that immediate day, it's not a firefight. Things will be okay, right? Which is different than that first year, I imagine. But you've earned that, right? It's been 15 years of running the business. You can't sleep well at night. I imagine you go back a long
Yes.
time ago, it's a little bit more stressful in the early days.
Yeah, like I feel it's a lifetime,
Mm,
but given the amount of time I spent in the industry growing up, a lot of the things that would be stressful in a typical environment aren't necessarily stressful for us. We kind of have the toolkit to kind of work through it. And we're just
yeah.
fortunate. Our focus has been our focus has been to build the balance sheet for a number of years, to build
Mhm.
that foundation so that we can take the calculated risks that we need or want to or are even comfortable with.
Mm.
That's kind of how I would say me and my brother have run the business up until this day.
Mm. So it's all about positioning. Like you position yourself in a spot of strength that when the hard times come, you can deal with it. But when opportunities arise, you can take advantage of it, right? You're not living day to day. It's the longer view. It probably is what you can attribute some of your success to.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I'm curious. So you have two passions. It seems like the rental industry passion and the technology passion. What's like your true passion of like what really gets you excited?
Well, a lot of people probably this may be not the most popular answer, but my passion is owning my time. Um,
Mm,
I really like to be able to own my time so I can spend time with family,
mm,
uh, build experiences, and solve different problems for companies of all sizes. In the rental industry, there's enterprises that have multi locations that have the same problems as single locations. Something
mm,
I'll probably go into in a little more depth during my talk at the ARA show. But really, it's that curiosity in me that loves to fix and streamline anything so that we can focus on other things or build the capacity to invest in doing things that move the company forward.
mm. So what you really like is generating efficiency in your own life where you can have more time, but also in businesses. It gives people margin to work on the needle moving projects, not just the day-to-day fighting all the time, right? You're trying to give margin to yourself, but also the companies you work with.
Yeah, exactly. And the staff and the staff and I
Yeah.
say family. I reference my team as a family, so that may be just kind of clarify. Like
Yeah.
we've spent a tremendous amount of time together, so the time we do spend together, we kind of help make a difference in every aspect, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. Well, I imagine your talk at the show in January would be awesome. We talked to a lot of people. It's like this swivel chairing. They're between like light boards and 10 different things. And it's like this rental gridlock almost. They're like stuck. They know where they need to go, but they can't breathe because they're executing all the time. And it's just helping people get a little bit more margin, right? So then you can really work on we've talked about a lot on these episodes, but working on the business, not in the business, right? You can have some breathing room, right? Traction, EOS, there's other frameworks to help get you there. Technology is one of them, and I think it's what I want to talk about here is your book actually is how do you drive digital transformation? So I'm curious as we kind of get into your book here, what was the genesis for writing the book? Who's it for? What's the story here?
Well, as I
Caveat
left,
with buy it in January when it comes out. So don't give all the spoilers.
absolutely,
I
please
usually
do.
don't get advanced copies of anything, so I'm happy I got an advanced copy of this. So it's something
Well,
for me.
listen, Cal, I hope you enjoy it. I've just been so fortunate that I've been able to do a lot of tremendous things in my corporate life that maybe not the average person gets to do or experience, and work with some phenomenal people. And I've had some great mentors, and I've had some great leaders and bosses that I've worked with, and they've helped shape me who I am today.
Mm,
And one of the things that, I feel that I'm getting close to is, I'm getting close to a place in my life where I'm giving back. And the
mm,
book is, I don't want to say it's a memoir, but it's a lot of different things that I've done specifically in my corporate life that, we worked with the largest grocer in Canada with 2,500 locations, that now I get to put in place in my own company, which is one location.
mm,
And whether we expand to two, three, four, 10, or we don't, the book is really a place marker for companies to kind of get on digital transformation, get on this new wavelength. It's essentially the fourth industrial revolution. It's not going away anywhere. And if
mm,
I put pen to paper, the other thing I think about is my children. I try and teach my children not to go to school to get the job. I teach them to solve problems. And
mm,
so this is kind of manifesto of the work that I've done in such a way for the things that I can share, and an
mm,
opportunity for me to share it on stage for other opportunities that come up moving forward.
mm. I love that. I mean, this is in sense, this is, yeah, you probably spent a year or 2 years, how long writing it, but it's really a lifetime of knowledge and experience. And it's just not just your technology experience, but your experience as a business owner running the rental company and then working with other companies on the digital transformation side. When you talk about the digital transformation, how much are you referring to AI versus general just technology adoption? Like how much of it is focused on AI versus what's just happening generally as technology is improving?
Well, um, the book is focused for entrepreneurs, business executives, people with the ability to make decisions, to understand that AI and technology is important, absolutely, but without building the right culture, without investing properly in education through your people, and without really understanding your processes, AI is not going to work. It's the shiny tool. It's the buzzword for the next few years. You'll start to hear quantum in the next few years.
Mm,
So there's always improvements that are going to happen in society. This book is kind of a manifesto that collaborates the three pillars with people, process, technology, and the underpinning is creating that culture in place that's a learning environment. Doesn't say that it's easy, and I'm not suggesting that at all. Most of these projects actually fail, and that's well documented.
mm.
But in order to better your chances, I suggest that you use some of the frameworks and leverage some of the experiences that I put forth in the book so that you're successful in your journey.
Yeah. So it really comes down to people, process, technology when you're driving change. Like if we kind of drill into each of those on the people side, are you referring to your team? Are you talking to customers? Is it all that together? How do you drive change within an organization on the people front?
Well, it's both, right? So internally, you definitely have the education piece of it and the time you spend with your staff to give them the tools, the foundation to be successful, to
Mm,
serve the customer. And from a customer perspective, on the technology space, there's so many tools out there now that you actually integrate with your customer, and it becomes a not just a one-to-one conversation. They can
mm,
actually look at a dashboard, an iPad, or some type of device to actually see what you have online, what you have available online to make the
mm,
order,
mm.
or B, reserve something online, and C, identify if they have any outstanding statements or any type of admin that wasn't captured when they visit the actual location.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. And what about the process side? We said we talk about people, process, technology. What sort of processes do organizations need to think about when driving technology change?
Listen, I think the investment that you make on the front end, understanding what that first touch point is,
Mm,
and it can start literally from a reservation or a search engine view on your company, right down to when the actual rental is closed off and invoiced. There's so many different touch points at each stage that if you go down into the detail for every single point and you want to streamline it, it's not to make it complicated and suggest that you need a 1,000-page workbook or operation manual, but you identify those processes, then you have an opportunity to kind of make things better internally with the tools that you have with your people just by realigning processes. But two, there's a time there to invest in technology to streamline the mundane tasks or the tasks that are a time suck.
mm,
I always tell my teams, and I do this in my talks when I'm teaching, it's the power of improving 1% every day is so
mm.
profound that it's very difficult in the beginning and you don't see where you're headed. But as you continue and build that type of culture, you literally, I think the math works out to 37% better in any given year. And that just compounds. And whether
Mm.
you get that to every day or just half of, or you just do it 50% of the time, the thought process and the message is make your day so you improve every day. So you build that leverage to have fun every day.
Yeah. Our team makes fun of me all the time because I talk about a game of inches. I just say that all the time because it's the same thing, 1% better. 1% better, right? Game of inches. It's from the, I think it's a quote from the longest yard or it's a football quote. But it's the same concept. Like it takes a long time of incremental improvements. You've seen probably 15 years of your business. It didn't get to where it was overnight. It was incremental things over a long period of time. And with technology rollouts, like I'm a technology person, obviously, but like it's not a silver bullet. It needs to be adapted to your processes with people on board over a period of time. You don't really launch a product and it's a 50% increase in revenue overnight, right? It takes time to roll it out the right way. And it takes commitment.
Oh, absolutely. Commitment, persistent, and the ability to give that technology a chance. Because I would tell you, I'll share with you this, and I'm sure this is common within the industry and your
Yeah.
client base. It's very hard to have someone who's been in the industry for a very long time, 20 plus years, look at some of the technologies and new ways of doing this and actually understanding or appreciating how it streamlines the big picture.
Mm,
But as you kind of understand how the big picture should look like, gaining inches a day or 1% a day just makes things so much smoother. And
mm,
and and I would argue that you don't even notice it. It just becomes part of the DNA of the actual location or the storefront.
mm. Well, that's a good point. You mentioned the people who are 20, 30 years in the industry and they have a certain way of doing things. I think there's a lot of humility on our side where we don't have all the answers and we're doing our best and we have perspectives and viewpoints on how workflows should work. But when we talk to people who've been in the industry for 30 years and they say, hey, rental man used to go work this exact way. Why doesn't it work this exact way? It's hard on the change management side because to the point you're talking about, we're not solving for one workflow, we're solving for the entire business, right? And the entire rental system. That's a challenge. I don't we lose that battle a lot of times where people are like, doesn't matter, don't get it. It needs to work this way because it worked this way forever. And that's hard. I don't know if you've dealt with that in some of the organizations you've worked with where there's like an inertia to a resistance to change, even if the change is positive and better, there's just some people who don't want to jump on board to the newest and latest technology.
Well, I mean, I'll share a funny story, but it's not fair that my brother's not here to defend himself.
I
Um,
mean, this is what brothers do. You got to throw them under the
we
bus right now.
we have a lot of colorful discussion on why things should happen and why we currently do things today, um, and how we streamline it based on working with our technology partner, who's evolved over the years. And it's not to say that the change needs to fall 100% one way or another or 100% the other way, right? It's more about we have these discussions, and it's interesting because it's like a game to us. We just want to improve. and
Yeah.
and and I would tell you that what fuels us is just making it better for the customers and our staff, but also for us, because we're like, oh, that's a better way, that's a better way.
Mhm.
And you know I know, and I know my brother realizes there's an area of diminishing returns and that where, we can kind of continue to go a certain pace and there really will become no point to improve. But that's what builds the margin for us to look at making the investment in a new location,
Mm,
buying that business, looking at different investment opportunities, actually giving our staff the time to really learn and spend time just with ChatGPT. And instead of looking for a filter or looking for a part number, I mean, we've built our private GPTs to just say, hey, this is the model number. Here's what I'm looking for. What are the part numbers? And it's not perfect,
hmm
but we're able to kind of do that and game it, and it becomes fun.
Yeah. That's exactly how my brain works. It's like the incremental. It's just so fun for me. Like every 2 weeks we do new features. We had one last night, and it's just the little tiny things. And like if it gets things 1% better, like the joy that I see from our customer, it's really fun. And I remember even working at Uber before this was they were constantly reinventing themselves. Like Uber was and still is like the leader in ride sharing. And like they would roll out new pricing models, new technologies in 2018. In 2019, they were like, we got to move on to the next thing because we gotta reinvent ourselves constantly. And like the changes they were getting 1% better, but that's billions of dollars for them, right? But I really love that sort of like relentless pursuit of improvement. And I think from my perspective, I love the rental industry, but I still think like I don't, you talk about diminishing returns. I don't think we've gotten there. We're still rising on that curve of like these changes on technology, process improvements for the majority of rental companies, like can drive meaningful improvements to ultimately to the bottom line, right? Which is what matters the most. So I love your sort of viewpoint of just trying to constantly iterate and get better.
Listen, thank you. I mean, I would share one last thought to that. It's, if you look at rentals, it's like science, right?
Yeah.
AI is not new. The science around AI and analytics has been around forever. It's been in academia.
Mm,
It's operationalizing that in an efficient manner and being able to deploy the capital or deploy the tools efficiently. That's hard. No different than rentals. Rentals has been around forever. Really, you're renting equipment. Everyone has the same piece of equipment. It may be a different model, may come from a different company, but if you follow my thought, a skid steer essentially does the same work no matter what model.
mm,
But it's that relentless pursuit to understand the model and the type of skid steer you buy so that you know all the functionalities, not only in renting it out, but actually maintaining it, right?
mm,
Imagine that if you're not maintaining your equipment, you're basically not going to get the longevity and the return on investment that you need. Everyone
mm,
knows this. So if you're doing it and you have one, sure you can do it manually. If you have a fleet of 100, it becomes a different ballgame altogether. And why
mm.
not leverage technology, especially on how easy it is to kind of implement it, in my opinion, these days.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about AI because that's sort of like I feel like ChatGPT came out about 2 years ago and it was like revolutionary. All of a sudden, you could write a poem to your wife and it made it feel like it was authentic in 30 seconds, right? And it's sort of just like a wow a moment, like when you first had the first iPod or an iPhone, first time you clicked and you called an Uber and the ride showed up. Like using ChatGPT for the first time was like magic, and I now use it every single day, all the time. Um, and I think about often of like, how is this going to transform the rental industry, and rental software in particular? Like, where are some use cases today that rental companies should be thinking about, and where does this go in 2027, 2030, which is not that far away? We talked about earlier how fast time goes, right? It's going to be here soon. Like, how transformational will AI be in the rental industry?
So I'm careful here because I do want to leave. I do want people to attend my talk, and I do want to obviously share
I've already
some
bought my ticket, by the way. Future
insightful
rental
things.
plug. It's on Tuesday at end of January. I'll be there anyways. But yes, don't give us all the spoilers yet.
I will tell you this, if you kind of look at the most powerful thing in the most powerful tool that AI has, we carry every day, and it's right here. It's a phone, right? I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
you see that. Everyone's got one, and that's evolved over the past number of years to become better. And some would argue that you know the updates are not as efficient as they should be. I see a rental world in the future, specifically job sites, where you know, the rental house can actually provide imagery for the actual jobs that are being taken place and can probably estimate the length of the tools that are required. Um, you do see today, but not widespread. You take pictures of equipment when it goes out and comes in to kind of validate damages.
Mm.
There is technology for infrared, and I do think some of the larger rental houses do this today.
Yeah.
As time progresses, this technology will be affordable to everyone. Um, Things that are coming into play are AI agents. And again, I don't want to become too geeky, and it's kind of like you're able to kind of have these tools, these mature tools, literally take the place of a regular chatbot or person to answer mainstream questions, and it's a plug and play in your webpage.
Yeah.
Um, we're in the process of refining and building our own GPT, and think about how powerful Chat GPT is, which is great, or Gemini or Claude or all the other ones. But creating your own LLM, may be like a odd thing for people today, but it'll probably be out of a package, in the next, say, 3 to 5 years for any rental house just to kind of build their own digital twin.
Mm.
Um, and I've said a lot here in just these kind of brief sentences that, you know, the impact and the magnitude that just one of them can do in your own business will be significant. I mean, I know because we've done it in our location where, at one point we had about 100 years of experience of rental staff,
Yeah.
um, and which is very powerful. And they look at the power of this tool, or they look at how we do things. And, I don't want to say they're amazed, but they look at it like, oh, wow, right? I don't need to do this every day. Oh,
Mm.
wow. You know, we have, we have a GPS system. We have a GPS system that manages preventative maintenance, and it literally leverages the API into our ERP system, and it tells us how many oil changes we need to do in a month, how many
Mm.
filters we need to buy. So there's a lot there, right? There's managing your inventory where I don't have to put the investment and keep cash in inventory. I can get into a just-in-time situation, right? I can reduce my downtime pretty significantly. So
Yeah.
I'm passionate about it. If the short answer is, I think it's going to be a significant change. I think the storefront is going to change, and I think how we interact with customers and vendors will significantly change, but all for the better.
When you think about the advent of the internet and GPS tracking technology and now AI, some of the big mobile devices, I mean, how do you think that the AI revolution ranks in terms of transformation? If you look over the next 10 or 20 years, how impactful do you think AI is compared to some of those other technologies, cloud-based computing, some of those other things that we've seen in the last 20, 30 years?
This will be one of those pivotal moments where you look back, and for those of you that go all in, will realize the investment.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't, it's not that you'll be able to be catching up, but it'll definitely bring you along. This is not going. I don't think this is going anywhere. Actually, I know it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just too powerful. The challenge is who's going to be governing it and who owns it, and that's a bigger question that I won't be able to answer. But there definitely needs to be some guardrails in there so that AI is used for good, and quite obviously not used to destroy things.
Yeah. And you had a at the end of your book, I think chapter 17 I wrote down, using analytics and AI to do good. And what's not said is not too bad, right? And you had examples around like suicide prevention, improving health, predicting floods and famines. There's a lot of positive things that will come out of this, but there's a lot of potentially negative things. And I think to answer my question, I think I don't know, I'm probably wrong on a lot of stuff, but I feel like this is by far the most transformational technology in my lifetime, bigger than the internet, honestly. And it's like day zero. It's like 1994 of the internet right now, is what it feels like. And where things are today, like what internet is, like the whole society, the whole world is run on this. And I just think that to your point, the winners will be the people who adopt early and aggressively on this technology. And it's still in its infant stages, but like it is going to be transformational. I saw Jamie Dimon came out this week and said, I think in the next 10 or 20 years, people are going to move to a 3-day work week because we're not going to have enough work to do. I don't know if that's right, but like that's the magnitude direction of what we're talking about. Like it is, I don't think we can overstate how impactful AI will be to every industry, but definitely the rental industry.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's an interesting quote from Jamie Dimon. I mean, think about working 3.5 days. Just think about that. We've always
Yeah.
talked about it, right? I always come in on Mondays and I say, I wish I had one more day. I've said that for a number of years.
Yeah.
But very impactful, I tell you.
Yeah, and I went to a conference in March, an AI conference, and they were saying that like where the AI is in 2024, it's smarter than like it's like your average college student graduate. Like for free for $20 a month for ChatGPT, you get that. In 2026, it'll be smarter than anyone in the world today. In 2028, it'll be smarter than all humans who ever lived combined. Like all the intelligence of all time humanity will be in AI, and like you can't, the human brain can't really comprehend that. So then I started thinking about like, how does this apply to the rental industry? And like twice in the last week, rental companies have reached out around the AI bot you mentioned, right? So you know you can have it on your website, but also internally in your store. If you have someone who's day three in the job, don't know everything about the rental industry, customer walks in, they need to do a certain project, you can type that into the ChatGPT. It looks at all of your specs. It even looks at inventory levels to say, hey, we got 10 of this product, but one of this one. They both do the same job, and maybe let's give them the one who we have more inventory levels. It can set pricing, right? Because it's looking at supply and demand levels, and like inevitably it becomes better than us. And that's sort of like some of the things that like can exist today or in the next 6 months, right? That technology exists. It's just a matter of who's going to do it. But that's just like I think the icing on top of like what this really could be. Now, those are like
Oh yeah,
very primitive
it's the
examples of where this goes.
what you're talking about is the arms race in the rental world. I
Yeah.
mean, listen, the larger companies are doing, dynamic pricing. We all know it. We all know that they and there's nothing wrong with it, by the way. I enjoy it. I think that's great. I will tell you, for me to do dynamic pricing um, for me to do dynamic pricing as an exercise, I think I can do it by theory, but I can tell you that our business is not there yet. I think if I adjust pricing based on utilization, just a simple metric, by the way, on how you measure success of a rental industry, there's a lot of different metrics, but utilization is definitely one that's on everyone's list. And
Yeah.
whether you want to talk about time utilization or you want to talk about ROI, the reality is, if you're not looking at that just at its basic form, I mean, even if you're trying to calculate it every month manually, you're definitely doing the right thing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
think about if the utilization comes to you every day and you get to actually, through your CRM, provide personalized offers that say, hey, listen, I have an abundance of skid steers and, we're having a sale on them. And you're able to literally send them to people where the job sites would require a skid steer.
Mm.
What happens today is you have salesmen that go visit the job sites, which again is not going away, by the way.
Yeah.
This is just another tool that enhances that based on the information that you feed the machine.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many use cases. And I think, what people will feel comfortable with is what is the lowest risk way I can start to feel comfortable with the technology, right? Like having
Yeah.
it set your prices on your website in real time. Well, that's a little scary because I don't know how this thing works. But like maybe an internal chat bot that I can ignore if I want to help guide conversations with customers. Maybe that's a way to start. Another rail couple I know is maybe having it listen to a lot of phone calls and start training and coaching the sales team based on, what they're hearing and how it should be done. That's a low risk way to start before you start letting it go loose on setting what your prices should be for your customers, right?
And think about that, just that alone, coaching phone calls and call centers, that's huge.
Yeah.
A huge business where AI has been able to kind of be able to kind of take a huge amount of data points and organize them in such a way to say, hey, these are three problems that your call teams are facing today. And whether it's one particular problem that's a down unit, or whether it's a customer service issue, or whether it's a education issue, like you've said, the opportunities I think are endless, and that's another example of low hanging fruit.
Yeah. I mean, even we had some work done. I had a plumber out here like a month ago, and I was on the phone for 3 minutes with a human being, what I thought was a human being. And the only thing that threw me off was there was like a half-second delay, which could have been the phone. And I was with my wife. I was like, you got to listen to this." Like at the end of it, I was like, "Okay, are you a human or a robot?" And I was like this real like weird uncomfortable. I was like, I hope it's not a human because I'm going to offend this person. But they were like, I'm an AI robot. But it took 3 minutes of me talking to it before I even had an idea that I wasn't even talking to human. And it's not like a chat robot; it's an actual voice robot, and it's real. I don't know, and I don't know. There's a lot of use cases in other industries that will apply to the rental industry as we go forward.
I'm excited about that one, and I won't go into the details, but I will share something to that magnitude during my talk on what we do at GTA.
Yeah. Well, you are one of maybe the most innovative rental company I know leading into the AI technology. So I'm excited for the talk. Excited to hear what you guys are working on. And just kind of closing out the book, it's coming out again in January, The Digital Advantage. I actually uploaded it into ChatGPT and I said, okay, knowing what you know about me, by the way, if you ever ask that question to ChatGPT, like, what's something you know about me that I don't know about? It's myself. It like nails it because I use it so often. It knows my Enneagram type, my Myers, it like knows me better than friends do. But I said, okay, as Kyle, like, what quotes would resonate the most from his book for me? And there were two that stood out to me. One, it said, the customer experience throughout the customer journey is the name of the game and must be your starting point for successful digital transformation. So the idea is not letting the technology drive where things are going, but starting with the customer journey, starting with what's the customer want. And that's what Amazon and Jeff Bezos have driven into their company, but really starting with the current workflows you have. How do customers want to interact with you? How do they interact with you? I think that's really important on driving some of this innovation. And the second quote I'll just read here is, think of digital transformation less as a technology project to be finished than as a state of perpetual agility, always ready to evolve for whatever customers want next. So I think the other thing is like the whole idea about 1%. It's not done. We're never done this. It's just like we didn't finish the technology project. We'll come back to it in 20 years. It's like an ongoing pillar in your business, right? You're constantly innovating. Technology is changing faster than ever before, and you have to continue to innovate and adjust, because if you don't, you can be left behind pretty quickly.
Well, listen, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it's interesting that ChatGPT kind of picked those up for you. But listen, that's
I
great.
hope those are actual quotes, because sometimes ChatGPT will make things up. I believe those are actual quotes from the book, but that's what resonated with me from at least putting in the ChatGPT in the initial I've read of the book in the last 24 hours since I've gotten a copy. So excited for that to come out. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about sort of your business again, succession planning, sort of how you're thinking about where things go next, right? You've started it 15 years. You've been in the industry since you were 15 years old. So you've had this rental sort of in your blood. You keep being drawn to it. So I have a hard time believing you're going to be done with the rental industry at any point in your life. But like, where does your business grow? You could go next. You've talked about maybe buying a new location, starting a new location. Do you sell the company at some point? A lot of people start thinking about exit strategies. Like, how are you thinking about that for your rental business?
Well, it's interesting you say that because me and my brother have really kind of sat down and talked about what we want out of this, and essentially, we have a lot of work to do because we thought in the beginning when we do this, it would be a lot of leisure time and it'd be high fives and handshakes and
Yeah.
we would just drop into the store when we want. So we failed there. Uh, what we enjoy, as long as this continues to be enjoyable and we continue to grow with our customers and we continue to add value, I can tell you that we will probably be here um, for the long term, and we
Mm,
definitely have some more years ahead of us. What those years look like, I don't know, but I can tell you that when we started, we were a six-digit company. Um, we're now a seven-digit company with a plan to get to eight digits. Whether we get to eight digit or not, that's not the decipher of success. It's building out those different opportunities that if a business comes up for sale where we want to buy it, we're able to make that investment. Whether we buy or move into a new location or multiple location, a grassroots location, we're comfortable and have the plans in place to do that.
mm,
Um, I have three children who have shown, not all of them have shown interest in the business, but some of them have, and there's definitely a lot of training to do. So they have a lot of time.
mm,
It may be an opportunity for a second generation um, as they grow older. I'm not sure if that answers your question entirely, other than saying this. Me and my brother definitely think we have a lot more in us um, to kind of continue, and we want to continue to gain, grow, have fun, like we currently are doing. Uh, but all avenues are open for us. And when I say all avenues are open, we've kind of set that strategically so that nothing kind of takes us by storm.
mm.
What I would do if we were to sell it, or if we were to sell it and move on, I obviously think both of us would stay in the rental industry in some capacity. Um, but to be honest with you, I'm perfectly comfortable maybe taking a teaching or advisory type of role in this type of space. But my wife would probably want to see me in Florida and enjoying some times by the beach and both of us retiring.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of all that you'll be able to do. And you listen to other owners or founders sell their business, and you're a certain type of person to start and run a business for a long period of time. And those types of people usually don't do well on the beach for a long period of time. My experience hearing people, and a lot of people they sell it and they're like, I got to get back in the game. I love it. I love the grind. I love what I'm doing. My dad was a CEO of a company, retired in January of last year for 3 weeks and started working at the running store, making $12 an hour selling running shoes. And now he's back full time working again because some people just like love the work. It's different for everyone. But as you think about like,
Well, if you find your passion, it's not work, right? And then
right.
he's probably found his passion like we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could sense you have that. I mean, that's what I love at some point, if we're not growing, if we're not innovating, then that probably becomes less. You got to find the work that you like to do, like building, if you like building, growing. But for you guys, as you kind of go from maybe 7 to 8 figures, do you think that would be a cold start second location, or do you think acquisition? How are you thinking about the trade-offs of that?
It's tough because given the amount of time that we've been in the industry, we're comfortable doing both. Um, Doing an acquisition in Canada, I mean, I was part of the M&A team at Loblaw, so I'm very comfortable handling those type of transactions. But to be honest with you, it'd be fun kind of starting up a new location and doing grassroots. Uh, it's it's the it just has to be right. It's got to
Mm,
be for the right reasons. And given our view on having a strong balance sheet and focusing in on our internal KPIs so that we can sleep at night, we'll probably not deviate from that too much, depending on the opportunity. The key is though that we're prepared for all opportunities, or we do our best to have ourselves ready to capitalize on them as they come to market.
mm. So I want to talk about metrics and success. You mentioned, you won't be defining success if you go from 7 to 8 or not. So I'm curious of like from a business metrics, from a rental business side, what are the most important metrics that you guys look at? Is it revenue? Is it utilization, return on assets? I mean, what metrics should rental companies be looking at to define if their business is performing well?
Listen, I definitely think the ones you mentioned are important, but I would tell you that NPS,
Mm,
uh, understanding the vibe within the customer base of your particular location is key. Understanding the vibe and the culture within your organization is key. Those are tough things to measure, right? But when you walk into a store, you know how things are going. And not every day is a good day. Some days are bad days. Some days are not, some days are just not good for everyone or a number of reasons. But understanding that and just chopping away at getting better or that efficiency or that optimization,
mm,
we better get to know and understand our revenue number. So yes, an overall revenue number, absolutely. Do we measure it? Yes. Gross profit, absolutely yes. Um, but understanding what drives that. And so is it a multitude of customers? Is it one customer? Is utilization on certain categories strong or weak? Is it weak because of seasonality or not? Um, those are the things that in the rental space for me, or our business, we kind of review quite a bit. And I don't want to say daily, but it's a very fluid conversation. The month end results obviously speak to how well we are doing. If we're doing well, that's great. We celebrate. If we're not doing as well, we just celebrate differently. We celebrate by seeing how we kind of shift or divert and see what patterns we're seeing.
mm,
And we've had to do a lot of that this year. I mean, it's been a softer year for us, but we've been able to kind of leverage down on certain costs that just weren't necessary within the business and and work with our customers who weren't as busy as they typically were.
mm,
And sometimes measuring or making a decision or not making a decision is a metric in itself.
mm,
Making the hard decisions are very important, and you need to make them when they're based on fact. Not making a decision sometimes is a strategic way of handling things, but that can backfire on you if not handled correctly.
Yeah. But what I like is the first thing you said was NPS. You didn't talk about revenue and you talked about the customer. Are you guys actually tracking an NPS, or is that more just like a qualitative customer sentiment? How are customers feeling? Or are you actually doing surveys? How do you know if NPS is good or not? Are you guys tracking that?
We are tracking it. We do it through surveys.
Hmm.
Um, I wish I had a wider base, meaning multiple locations to kind of measure it or measure against, or it's an industry standard to measure against. We take that knowledge and we basically adjust or refine certain aspects of our business. And it's interesting because we typically do okay, right?
Hmm.
We typically do okay. But when things come up or certain themes or undertones of something, we know that we can look at that and attribute it to whatever it is within our business.
Hmm.
And it could be as simple as our machines go through a certain process when they come in. We get them rental ready, and quite possibly we didn't do something, or didn't clean the machine as we typically do for whatever reason. And that's just a one data point that doesn't shift or change anything. But
Yeah.
if you get a few of those, then you go and investigate, right? Or hey, I've been calling your store, but I'm not getting answers. What's going on, right? We've made some adjustments to that,
Hmm. Starting
right?
with the customer in mind, in these surveys, there's like net promoter where you could do like the tens and nines minus the seven and lower score, right? Something like that. And once you have a baseline, tracking that over time. And I think if you did have multiple stores, it'd be helpful to see across locations and time. But even just having that as a baseline, it won't give you all the answers, but it's a data point, a signal on customer sentiment, right? Which is ultimately what matters most.
Yeah, and I think customer life cycle, that's customer life cycle or customer life value is key. And
Yeah.
I think that's one underpinning measurement that helps guide that or gives you the ability to kind of improve that needle over time, like you mentioned.
Totally. Well, Akili, I want to thank you for coming on today. Excited for your book coming out, The Digital Advantage: Harnessing People, Culture, and Technology for Growth, coming out in January. Is that right?
That's right. That's the plan.
That's the plan. And then speaking at the Future of Rental show, it's on Tuesday, right before the show starts on Thursday at the ARA show in Vegas. Me and Court from our team already bought tickets. We'll be there. Looking forward to. They had the same event 2 years ago,
That's right.
equipment side. So the one that 2 years ago was the first time they had it, and it was awesome. Like
Yep.
we personally learned a lot of new ideas that we incorporated, and I'm excited for your talk and just for that whole event in January. So I guess final question, Achille, final advice you'd give for a rental company who is thinking about leaning into technology. That could be new GPS trackers, could be an online storefront or rental software, could be AI, it could be anything. What advice would you give a rental company who is hesitant but thinking about how do I take the next step in adopting technology in my rental business?
Well, I'm pro tech here, but I would say go all in and you know, go all in and make calculated risks on what you're most comfortable with. That's, I think, the only way to do it. And that rule or that law of 1% every day or gaining in inches will become very, very profound in your day-to-day life. But it's fun. You got to take that approach, and it's fun.
Yeah. Have fun with it and go all in. Go on the right technology, right? So maybe you can crawl, walk, run into it. But generally think rental companies probably still have room to invest in technology for the most part. So, anyways, Kelly, thanks again for coming on and look forward to seeing you in January.
Listen, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you
Take
guys.
care.